I am pulling back the curtain on my production process. Today, I want to walk you through all of the different tools and all of the platforms that I use to create this podcast from start to finish every single week. I also use these tools for Happiness Happens as well. Whether you're listening to this and you're a brand new podcaster and you're trying to figure out what your workflow looks like, or if you've been in the podcasting space for quite a while and you're looking for tips, I think that you're going to find some things that are very insightful here. So let's dive into it. The first thing that I do is have a booking and client management system. I'm going to start with high level. I recently moved all of my stuff over to high level, and this is where I manage my booking calendar, my intake forms, I send calendar invites, and I send automated email reminders to upcoming guests. It has been an absolute game changer to streamline this entire process because it really takes everything from start to finish and takes care of the guest to make sure that they have everything they need before we record. Speaking of recording, when it comes to actually recording the podcast, I use Riverside FM. I'm sure you've heard me talk about it on the podcast before. And if you're brand new to the show, welcome. That's the software that I love to record on. Currently, I'm recording this on Zoom because I'm traveling and my bandwidth on my computer is not high enough for Riverside FM, which is a little bit of a drawback, but that's okay because we have to find solutions when we need them. Riverside FM gives me excellent audio quality while recording remotely with different guests. I've also used it for in-studio production work as well. One thing that I love the most about it is that it creates a separate audio and a separate video track for each guest, which is an absolute game changer and is so handy in the editing process later on in case people are talking over each other or something like that. The next thing that I want to talk about is editing and show notes. So this is where my favorite tool that I've talked about countlessly over the last few episodes specifically really shines. I absolutely love Descript, and I actually take my Riverside FM recordings and I upload them directly to Descript. Now, you can do your editing in Riverside FM. I choose not to because I use Descript because of all the client work that we do. So Descript makes the most amount of sense for me within my podcast production workflow. And I love it the most because it automatically transcribes everything. So from there, I can take the audio and I can edit it while reading the transcript. I can cut out all the filler words. I can rearrange different sections, and I can do this all within Descript without having to worry too much about how is it all going to look and sound at the end. It doesn't just make the editing side of it super easy, but it's also how I create my show notes and pull snippets of content so that I can take those and repurpose them across other platforms afterwards. And I can highlight different key quotes and different sections within the transcript to make exporting easier and to make my content creation process way easier. The next thing we're talking about is that visual content. So for designing artwork and templates and thumbnails and YouTube covers and all of the above, my team and I like to use Canva. Canva is so versatile and it is loaded with templates to make your graphic design so much easier, even if you don't 100% know what you're doing. And for video and editing content creation, we use Capcut to bring those different pieces to life. I just use the app off of my phone. And I know my team use the desktop app as well because it is super, super easy, very powerful, and it works seamlessly with the clips that we pull from Descript, and we can even integrate it into Canva as well. The next thing I'm going to talk about is my project management system. So to keep everything moving and everything organized, I manage my podcast projects in Trello. I have different boards for content planning or episode logistics, guest communication, you name it. Everything is directly in Trello to make it so much easier. And I'm also a very visual person, so I like to see what needs to be done and when. And I also like to see what does the social media content look like? What is the graphic? What is the caption? What are the hashtags? Like all of that stuff gets housed in this project management system. You can actually purchase that system. It's on my website, so feel free to check it out at the link below. The next piece of the puzzle that we want to cover is hosting and distribution. So once an episode is fully edited, fully produced, show notes are ready to go, I use Libsyn to host my podcast and distribute the audio for my podcast. It takes the audio and it publishes it and pushes it out to all of the different podcast platforms like Apple, Spotify, Good Pods, iHeartRadio, and many, many, many more. For the video version of it, I take it and I publish it to YouTube. I prefer to do this upload manually, even though there is the option to do it automatically. I like to do it manually because I think that you have more control and you can title things differently. And I like to constantly be testing different covers and titles and all of the above. And all of this works seamlessly together. Next, we're going to talk about promotion because promotion is key. So I'm active on Instagram, on TikTok, on LinkedIn, on Pinterest, on Facebook, and in my Facebook group. So I like to share all of these different teasers that we're creating to amplify those key messages that I want to drive home and also engage with my audience in a really different and a significant way. Pinterest has actually been a huge traffic driver for me because we've implemented a specific strategy that drives traffic directly to my website. If you want more on this, be sure to check out the Pinterest Power Kit that's linked below. It's developed by Samantha Lynn, who's an absolute Pinterest genius. And so if you want to get your hands on that, please check it out there because it gives you a whole content strategy around those search optimized idea pins and so much more. But ultimately, I will say this too when it comes to promotion, you want to just make sure that you're leveraging all of the different platforms that you have. So take a look at all of your social media platforms, your blog, your newsletter, Substack, all of these different pieces. How can they work together, right? How can they start talking to one another? And how can we leverage that one episode and create a whole bunch of promo around it? Now, if you're new to this whole process and you're like, oh my God, Simona, this all sounds amazing, but where do I even begin? I want you to check out the podcast launch kit. It's a combination of my online course that goes in depth of how to launch your podcast, but it's not just about launching. I also teach you about guest booking, pitching, the PR side, the launch side, social media side, graphic side, all of the above. It also has my podcast management system and plug and play social media templates for you to go from launch to growth mode. So you can check that out in the episode links below. And before we end this episode, I did start a free Facebook group called Podcast Success Community. And in there, I've been doing lives, answering questions. There's so much going on there. So you can get feedback, you can up-level your podcast with other creators, and you can even have opportunities to find a guest or to be a guest. So I go live in there every Monday. Please come over and join us. I can't wait to see you in there. There you have it, my friend. This is my entire and complete workflow for producing and promoting this podcast from start to finish, from booking guests to editing the visuals and everything in between. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will answer them over in my Facebook community. Share this podcast episode with a friend, someone who needs to hear it, and I cannot wait to see you in my Facebook community. I'll see you also on next week's episode.